Joe Shane, he must have had a surprising, or he probably saw it coming, but talk about getting any draft capital dropped in your lap for Darren Waller out of the blue, right? Like that had to please the Giants. Clearly, Waller's not playing for them anymore. And so what's the Darren Waller backstory with him winding up with the Dolphins as the tight end of choice to fill the Jonnu Smith void, Tom?
I think this is really fascinating, Rich. And if there were any place that Darren Waller was going to play, it was going to be Miami. In fact, my understanding is Darren Waller and Drew Rosenhaus talked to the Giants last week. And that was the message, which was, listen, he's either going to stay retired or he's going to play for the Dolphins. He really wants to go and play in Miami. And to Joe Shane's credit, he didn't drag this out and hold him over the coals. He worked toward a common sense solution that was going to be able to get something for Darren Waller in the form of a sixth-round pick in next year's draft. And the Dolphins get a low-risk flyer on a guy who's reunited with the coach that he had the best years of his life with. Frank Smith, who's now the offensive coordinator with the Dolphins, was the Raiders tight ends coach when Darren Waller was a monster for a couple of years there. He was the one of the best tight ends in the entire NFL, one of the most unique weapons in terms of just how big and physical and fast and the wingspan and all those things. He was really, really good. And part of that was he had this unique connection with Frank Smith. We all know the Darren Waller story in terms of the past struggles with drug addiction, his career, his life, very much being on the ropes, coming back and showing that he could be, this caliber of a player there. Those two, Frank Smith and Darren Waller, are like brothers. They are that close. And so when Darren Waller began to have that feeling like maybe I would want to give this another shot, he wasn't going to go back to the Giants. The only place he was going to go was Miami. Now you're Mike McDaniel, and yes, he's 33 years old. Darren Waller turns 33 in September. He didn't play last season. There's all kinds of reasons that I understand for people to be skeptical of this, but everything I've been told is he is mentally and physically refreshed. He's in a good place. All of a sudden last year, the Dolphins offense through the course of the season, both because of what they were dealing with at quarterback when Tua was out, the offensive line issues, Teron Armstead being beat up, they basically went from this fast-paced, wide open vertical strike offense, Rich, to like a ball control style of offense. Well, now all of a sudden, if you get something close to the Darren Waller that we've seen at his peak in the past, that is a big detached weapon that you can line up inside, you can line him up outside, and utilize that to sort of offset the speed that you have with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I think it's a fun idea. And again, your worst case is you're out a sixth-round pick next year. Your upside here is you get a piece that maybe with Devon Achane continuing to come on, you hope that Tua can stay healthy, all those things. You're hoping maybe this is something that Darren Waller is going to get a boatload of balls thrown in his direction, and that's going to give you the opportunity to exploit certain mismatches as we head here into 2025.
Hey, Tom, I'm looking at the Dolphins depth chart. Tua, obviously, is the key. Achane, along with Jalen Wright and Alexander Madison, is the running back room top three. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and to me, one of the more unheralded pickups of the offseason, Nick Westbrook-Ikine. Is the third wide receiver there with some other massive speed on the wide receiver depth chart with Waller and Ingold. You protect Tua, keep him healthy, and this is the Mike McDaniel vision, right? Fast, quick, and get a ton of points. And if Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb are healthy, my guy Kenneth Grant being drafted. Obviously they're now greener in the corner position, but that's your Dolphins 2025 outlook with just looking at the depth chart. Not too shabby, Tom.
And you're hoping that Minka Fitzpatrick, just as a veteran player, is going to be able to stabilize the back end with a really young secondary around him. Listen, it all comes down. This isn't breaking news. It all comes down to Tua, his ability to stay on the field. Look at Mike McDaniel's record when Tua Tagovailoa is his starting quarterback. It's very good. When he's not out there, it's not as good. And you can say that about most any team in the NFL. You lose the starting quarterback, then no matter who you have as the backup, you're probably in some deep trouble if you got to get through more than 2 to 4 games. The difference with Tua is there's a long injury history here, going all the way back to Alabama, the tightrope surgery on his ankle, the dislocated hip, then obviously the concussions in the NFL. You just don't know. He's doing everything he can, right? Every year we have the stories. He's learning martial arts, ways to fall. He is going to protect himself more. He's going to get down. And then you'll see him, and all of a sudden, the instincts kick in and he lowers his head into somebody in the red zone on a run and he ends up missing a couple of months. That's what this all boils down to for the Miami Dolphins is keeping Tua Tagovailoa healthy. If he is, I do think that you can see their path forward here in terms of we're going to be able to compete. We're going to be able to get the ball to all these different playmakers here and be good enough on defense. If something happens to Tua, then you're down to Zach Wilson, who has a ton of ability, but has been a roller coaster ride, to say the least, in his NFL career, though I do think he's in a really good spot now with Mike playing in the same offense he was drafted for with Mike LaFleur out there with the Jets. And then he's competing with Quinn Ewers, who's kind of the opposite, where the physical traits may not be there, but he has won and he's been there and been in big games over and over again. Is there a clear answer there? Are you handing this off to somebody who you feel like can step right in? Probably not if you're a Dolphins fan. You got to keep Tua on the field. And if that doesn't happen, if Tua were to get hurt again, and certainly none of us are rooting for that to happen, but there's going to be decisions for everybody to make as we head into 2026. And the other function, Rich, of that Jalen Ramsey trade is they pick up a guy in Minka Fitzpatrick now who they could cut after the season if they wanted to clear a bunch more money off the books with no cap consequences. They removed the future Jalen Ramsey guaranteed money. They gave themselves more flexibility, actually, as we head into 2026. Well, the Steelers got all the flexibility because Jalen Ramsey will probably start at outside corner, but he can play nickel, he can play safety, they can move him around into different positions. We'll see. I hate outcome-based analysis. We're looking at this in advance, but you can understand why both teams did this deal, and it's going to be fascinating to watch the ripple effects across both teams in 2025.
Tom, you the man. Have a great Fourth. We'll chat. We'll chat soon. You bet. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Pelissero. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.